At the beginning of This is the most brutal TV series I marveled Moonlight, as here the protagonist Stephen wakes up from his home strangely finds himself lots of the bed Stephen carefully checks the fine stand beside the bed and the gap under the door. It seems he is making sure he didn't go out. Stephen is a sales clerk at a museum gift shop, but he dreams of becoming a museum guide just as he is explaining to a little girl he has to covered by his last on. Donna always purposely mispronounces Stephen's name is a little trick Americans use to display aggression. She reminds him not to forget the steakhouse date on Friday night. Stephen checks 3 items the other party confirms he doesn't know when he became so good with women. At that moment Donna comes over to mock Stephen, asking why vegetarian we go to a steakhouse. Hearing this Stephen feels like laughing inexplicably. Some people in the country please do not take this personally. When Stephen leaves work at night, when he also gets his name wrong, street performers share their experiences when going to bed at night. Stephen locks himself up again, but when he opens his eyes he finds himself lying on a strange long with lot of the corner of his mouth and his chin dislocated. A strange voice starts to sound. Moderator Mark could even more confusing for Stephen is the golden scarab in his pocket. Suddenly a sinister figure appears behind him but disappears when Stephen turns around. However, is a castle behind Stephen. People on the castle inexplicably start shooting at him though he doesn't understand what's happening. Escaping is crucial. He runs towards a nearby town. Stephen approaches the crowd in the town where a man from the crowd steps forward. He is Arthur, the leader of the SEC. Today he is conducting a trial of the deity. It's a man steps forward and shakes hands with Arthur. Arthur's arm tattoo of scales starts to sway. The man is deemed good. Stephen thinks this isn't necessarily a good thing. Then an old woman steps forward and the scales turn red. She instantly turns into a corpse. At this moment a mercenary tells Arthur there's a problem with the deal. Arthur shouts something only the cultists understand. Everyone instantly kneels. Only Stephen is slow to react, exposing himself. Arthur demands the sacred scarab up from Stephen. Stephen questions why would I need this thing ticket, but the mysterious voice stops him again and controls Stephen Saudi, preventing him from handing over the scarab. Mercenaries have to restrain Stephen to take it forcefully as the scarab is taken away. Stephen suddenly loses consciousness with his eyes rolling back. When Stephen wakes up again his face is covered in blood and all the mercenaries around him are down. He holds the blood-stained scarab in his hand. Stephen doesn't have time to think. He frantically runs to a car and starts to flee. A mercenary jumps on and struggles with Stephen. Another group of mercenaries prepares to shoot him. At this moment Stephen passes out again. When he awakes he finds a stone gun in his hand and the nearby mercenaries are no longer moving. Fortunately a mysterious voice warns him avoiding a collision with a lumber truck. More mercenaries catch up and surround him. Stephen loses consciousness once more. When he wakes up again another car has been dealt with, but eventually he has cornered by the mercenary. He's just as he is about to surrender. Wood from the lumber truck roll down and flips the mercenaries over. As the timber is about to hit him he suddenly wakes up in bed. After confirming he is still locked up, Stephen awkwardly laughs thinking it was all a nightmare, but strange things start to happen. First his single Siamese fighting fish becomes of hair. When Stephen rushes to his date he finds out it's already Sunday. He orders a well-done steak for himself. Disheartened he returns home where Stephen accidentally discovered scratch marks on the floor. He moves the table and steps on it, finding a loose wooden slab. He pulls out a cell phone from behind the space. The most contacted person in the phone is someone named Layla. Just as he decides to call her, Layla calls. Layla loudly demands to know where he said. Stephen responds to Layla with the question, "You think I am?" Just then the call is disconnected as Stephen is about to call back. Another voice appears around him advising him not to continue investigating. At this point Stephen seems to have a hallucination. He sees himself in the mirror shaking his head at him. Then the lights in the room start to flicker. Stephen rushes out in panic. He tries to take the elevator to the ground floor, but the elevator suddenly stops on the second floor. The elevator doors open. He sees in the hallway's reflection a monstrous figure approaching him. The approaching monster is among God. "Can't you?" Stephen is terrified and collapses on the ground. Then "Can't you?" suddenly turns into an old lady. Stephen awkwardly explains that he is looking for his contact lens. At this moment the elevator brings him back at his apartment on the 5th floor. While Stephen is questioning this country who appears again, Stephen is so frightened that he wakes up on a bus and it seems like a moon god country has been following him. When Stephen is driving he discovers that Arthur is actually tracking him. Stephen rushes into the museum's exhibition area in panic only to find that Arthur is already there waiting for him. He tries to seek help from the museum security but finds out that the guard and many others around are followers of Arthur. Stephen tells Arthur that he does not have his sacred Sarah. Arthur explains that the scarab is of at the creature on the stone column known to the world is the first monster, but Arthur's called and it is a god. At this moment the entire museum's lights flicker. Arthur looks at Stephen and says then he subjects Stephen to the trial of that resulting that the sails on Arthur's arms swing wildly. Arthur looks at this and shakes his head, ultimately having to release Stephen. As a result Stephen diligently scans to start his work again. He is Truly a hard-working employee. In the evening after work, Stephen hears the sound of the dog barking inside his home. He initially thinks a visit or forgot they're a dog, but instead sees a bald water monkey with quick movements. Even finally manages to run into the bathroom and lock the door, but as the monster is about to break through at that moment, the strange voice seeks up again. Another personality, Mark, appears in the mirror. Mark seriously advises Stephen that he should let him take control of the body. You need to give me control, you understand what you're talking about? Rapping about the door crimes should you will shut off on. Stephen has no time to chat, muttering to himself that he's going to die. Seeing Stephen's frightened state, Mark seriously says, you know Canada should. You want usual hashish hush into the something. It's by solutions. I spoke with audition just ago. We will Marvel Holmes, or should he was halted issue too much on both other wish should today you won't see just shy of them. Stephen wakes up from the dream again. This time he's certain there's another personality. Stephen rushes to the museum to check the situation from the day before. He finds that the bathroom has been sealed off. The security is about to check the surveillance. Stephen insists on going with them. He warns them they might see something unbelievable, but they only see Stephen himself. On camera there's no water monkey chasing him, and Stephen looks directly at the camera as he leaves. Stephen is sure that it was more controlling the body at that time. The bathroom has been violently destroyed. The museum doesn't want to press charges against Stephen, but he's certain to lose his job after being fired. Stephen goes back to the square to talk to the statue people again. At this moment, Stephen remembers the keys he found along with the phone. He locates the chain warehouse. To his surprise, the front desk clerk recognizes him and even remembers his storage unit number 43 led by the clerk. Stephen arrives at Unit 43. Inside the warehouse he only sees a car and some outdoor gear. On a box by the bed is a black bag. Opening it even finds several stacks of cash. What surprises him more is a gun pulled from inside. He also finds an American passport with Mark's name on it, and at the bottom of the bag he discovers the sacred scarab. Accidentally Stephen activates the beetle, which opens its wings and hovers, pointing in a direction like a compass in the wall's reflection. Marketeers. He advises Stephen to go lie down and sleep to let him handle some things. Angry Stephen demands Mark to tell the truth. Tell me, what is you all? Are you? Yes, a country. I'm his avatar, which means R2. We protect the vulnerable and the conscious. Just as Stephen exclaims that the whole situation is absurd, claiming all he did was eat a steak. At this, Mark continues to persuade, insisting Stephen let him take control of the body. Stephen, frustrated and feeling pressure, accept the black bag to take to the police, but as soon as he steps out of the storage unit, the corridor light-skinned liquor can't you rushes towards him from a distance. Stephen finally manages to run out and collides with a woman on a motorcycle. This woman is Layla. Remark's phone. She track Mark's own to find this place. Layla complains about Mark not contacting her, seemingly unaware of Stephen's existence. Stephen asks Layla why she's worried about him and discovers that Layla is Mark's wife. Stephen is secretly pleased to learn he only has a wife. What Layla is confused about. Steve